Hey, what's going on, scholars? It's your professor here, the Enlightened and Enlisted, and if you are like me, you are tired of storming the beaches of D-Day, fighting in the streets of Stalingrad, and trekking through the snow of Bastogne. Well, today I'm going to give you my top 5 picks for campaigns I like to see added to here in Enlisted. But first, I want to thank everyone who has followed me on Twitch. We are on the path to 400 followers. I would have never thought we would have gotten this far in just a few months of streaming. If you haven't followed me on Twitch, well, the link is in the description below. We talk history, politics, and everything in between, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now that's out of the way, let's get into this video. Number 5. Defense of the Philippines. Being able to defend as the Americans is something you rarely see in a World War II shooter, but the Philippines would provide a great opportunity to do so for the Stars and Stripes. From the initial landings to the Battle of Bataan, the player base would be given a unique experiences for the early stages of the Pacific War. We could even see a Filipino squad added as their defensive forces put up stiff resistance defending the homeland. We already know the Japanese are coming to Enlisted, and with the American weapons already being in Normandy, it shouldn't be too hard for the developers to add. Douglas MacArthur said, "I shall return, and I say we should return to the fight to see this interesting piece of history." Number 4. The invasion of Poland. The trigger to the Allied involvement in Hitler's expansive European conquest, the invasion of Poland is massively understudied and rarely represented in games. I will admit that this is going to be a harder campaign for the developers to pull off, as the air war is going to be massively lopsided without some serious buffs given to the Polish people. I mean, the BZL-11 against a BF-109 is going to be a tough sell. I suppose they could give the French and British fighters to the Polish people in a reverse Battle of Britain scenario, but that would not be historically accurate at all. Tanks would be less of a problem, as the German armor was lacking in being mostly just the Panzer II at the time. But I will admit that the Polish variant of armor is lacking as well as their aircraft selection. But with that lack of variety, you can make up with the possibilities of levels. From busting cities to defending forest-covered river crossings, the Polish campaign can immerse a player in the struggle to survive. Polish weapons have already started to make their way into Enlisted, with the Germans getting the Polish BAR in the Moscow campaign. This from the premium squad purchase of the 258th Infantry Division. We could also see a reverse side of this campaign with the Russians invading Poland as well. 2 birds with 1 stone is why this campaign clocks itself in at number 4 on our list. Number 3. Greece. Italian versus Greek seems like something of a throwback to ancient times, but it happened in World War II and is probably where the Italians earned their reputation as subpar troops, as the Greeks, with their outdated weaponry, were able to hold back Italian forces for a brief period of time. Hitler would be furious in what he called the Greek fiasco, and would later claim that that was the cause for Operation Barbarossa's failure. While that isn't true, it did cause the Germans to shift a number of resources to bail out the Italians. Italian weapons are already in game for the Germans on the Normandy campaign, such as the Brenda 30 and the FNAB submachine gun. The Greeks were supported by the British in the air, with the 30th Squadron being sent to their air defense. The mountain fighting that was experienced would be an interesting scene for the player to find themselves, with tanks pretty much being vulnerable to AT fire in this rocky terrain. It would allow infantry to shoot and scoot, and indirect mortar fire would be needed to rout out enemy MG nest. The use of smoke would also be a must for infantry advances. How are we doing on this list so far? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, consider doing so, as it really helps this channel get discovered, and if you really liked today's video, be sure to share it with your friends. But enough of that, let's get back to the countdown. Number 2. The Winter War. If you've been a part of this channel for a while, you know I have been pressing hard for a Winter War campaign. I've mentioned countless weapons that have been used by the Finns in their defense of their sovereignty against the Russian aggressors. With each release from the developers, it seems more and more likely we could actually see this campaign. The snow-covered frontier saw some brutal fighting between the Finns and Russians, with artillery, snipers, and ski troops. This could be a really cool campaign for the developers to bring to life, allowing a side of the war that is never covered in World War II shooters. Well, we have arrived at our number 1 spot. Drumroll please. Number 1 is going to be the Second Sino-Japanese War. The Pacific has always been seen as an American affair, but the expansiveness of the Pacific theater is truly breathtaking. the Chinese tend to get the short end of the stick when it comes to recognition for their contributions in World War II. This campaign has the most dynamic avenues for the developers to explore, with Communist China forces, the Flying Tigers, and battles raging from the mountains to city streets. Who doesn't want to fight the Battle of Shanghai or Nanjing? This conflict also has a huge amount of weaponry to pick from, as the Germans, the United States, France, Great Britain, etc. all poured equipment into this conflict. It is this diversity is why it makes our #1 pick, and we hope they seriously consider adding this to the campaign. What did you guys think? Did we miss anything you would like to see? Let us know down below, and while you're down there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me convince my wife I can do this as a full-time job. Until next time, scholars, hit those books and hit those bottles. Cheers.